Welcome to the Job Search Podcast with your host, John Ribeiro, where we will be interviewing leading industry experts to help you get the job that you want. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Canadian Job Search Podcast. My name is John Ribeiro, your host, and today we've got a very special guest and a dear friend of mine, Muzaffar Matloob. Muzaffar is a career coach and HR professional, and he's also got an affinity for painting and doing calligraphy. Well, Muzaffar, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me here.
Yeah. And, it's been great to reconnect with you, especially after all, especially with the pandemic. I know we haven't really seen, or, we're big. For those that are listening, Muzaffar and I, we met through Toastmasters many, many years ago. And it's been amazing just to stay in touch over the years. But last year with the pandemic, we weren't able to see each other as much as we are right now. And I'm so glad to just have you here and to be a part of this and to share your insights on what it takes to really succeed in today's job market. So let me get started. So, in terms of the current job market, what would you suggest is the best way for a job seeker to reach out to a recruiter?
John, as you know that a major workforce, not locally here in Ontario or in Canada, globally, is unemployed because of COVID-19 pandemic. And everybody is struggling to go back to work. And people are using different methodologies and strategies. And majority of them are confined to advertised jobs. And they are responding and spending a lot of time in terms of preparing themselves and customizing their resumes and cover letter to respond to those positions. However, this is okay, but not very effective from the job seeker's point of view, because this position which they are responding, probably few hundred people would also be responding to the same job. And coming back to your question that how to reach out to different agencies and recruiters, this is one of a good idea in terms of, I would rather say it's a proactive approach that you are approaching to recruiters and introducing yourself. But when you buy a t-shirt, what do, John? You do shop around, right? You shop around and you see who is going to give you the best quality and the best price, and is it a brand name or not? And exactly, we should use the same strategy when we are reaching out to recruiters. Are they branded? Means that do they have a good name in the industry? Number two, when you shop around, how their services are, how responsible they are, how good they are doing it. Find out about them, what kind of industry you are catering in, what type of jobs you have. A lot of recruiters, they specialize. Some of them are information technology, some of them are confined to manufacturing, some of them are related to government and banks and financial institutions. So we should shop around. If I am in the manufacturing and I am a chemical engineer, and if I reaching out to Robert Half, it does not mean anything because they are specializing in banking and finance sector. So my first tip is shop around.
Nice.
Look,
Sorry, go ahead.
The second is the credibility in the market. Since how long they are in the business. Because if you have seen that this industry has been grown up like mushrooms everywhere, every third person is a recruiter carrying a name of a recruiting company. So this is for you to find out and don't waste your time. That's very important for you. Mm-hmm. And the third thing is this, that confined to few limited recruiters, because this is also very important. If your resume is everywhere and handling by everybody, a lot of places, when two recruiters submit your resume to employer against a position, you know what happened? They will not consider you because there are two different agencies are carrying your resume. They don't want to go into that fight and disagreement between the two recruiters. So they disqualify you for that position, and you lose opportunity just because you are giving your resumes to everybody. Third
All
thing,
right.
and
Sorry, go
very
ahead.
important, and that is to tell your recruiter, please do not submit my resume without letting me know where you are submitting it. By doing that, you will keep a log of where your resume has been already submitted. And if a recruiter is approaching to a similar employer where your resume has been already submitted, you can ask them not to do that because your resume is already there.
Nice. No, that's a great point. I would have never thought of it that way as you're shopping around for recruiters. But just for our listeners, what's the difference between a recruiter and an agency, or is that the same thing? Because I know that keeps coming up from, in terms of what I'm hearing. Is that similar, or is that slightly different?
John, it's a very good question. A number of times people have asked, and a lot of people have discussed that. There's a very thin line in between, of course. Some people call them recruiters and headhunters, but usually those companies are approaching to high-end positions where people are not actually submitting their resumes. Rather, they are approaching them if they have an employer. For high-end engineers and professionals in financial industry and all of those. Agencies are basically the one where mostly, I would say that mostly positions where people are approaching them, register with them, and then those companies are working for them. So they are, those are the one who are doing that. Even though it's very difficult to say that, but mostly companies are using saying that they are agencies just to make it easy for everyone. And not much a difference in terms of, I would say there's no legal difference between the two. It can be used vice versa.
All right. No, and that's good to know, because it's like I said, it's one of those things that we hear. So for a lot of newcomers, so for people that are outside of the country, is the recommendation to work with a recruiter that can, I guess, pitch you or sell you to these organizations? Would that, because I know a lot of people listening to this call today are newcomers to the country. What would be your recommendation there?
John, you're right, and especially in Canada, where we are very flexible in terms of immigration, and we are attracting a lot of people around the world, and people also like to come to Canada because of its growing economy, and I would say that the living standards are very high, so people love to come to Canada. Now, before they come to Canada, few things that I would strongly recommend is this. Again, research. And now, because of the tools that you can have some professionals on LinkedIn that you can build network. Ask specific questions about your industry. Ask specific questions about the type of recruiters or the name of the recruiting agencies or companies who are there in their particular industry. So these kind of research will help them to choose before they come, and then before they come, they can approach to the agency, telling them what is their status, like how long it's going to take for them, what is their plan. So if they are coming, for example, end of the year and it's only first quarter, then it's not a great idea. The recruiter will not take you seriously. So when you have at least 3 months left before you come, then you can give them a green signal. Well, I am planning to come in 3 months, but if there is you can have an interview arranged and everything, I can be available through Zoom, or even if something is very hard, I can myself commute to and travel to Canada.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah, no, and absolutely. That's a great point around just being prepared and letting the recruiters know when you're going to be arriving, and then it gives them the opportunity to make sure that they can actually place you into the right organizations that are open to, delay. I'm not going to say delay the start time of the hiring, but actually, and so this is a question. So have you noticed a difference in how organizations are hiring today? Is it taking the same amount of time it was taking pre-COVID? or is it taking a little bit longer to get through the entire recruitment cycle?
Uh, my experience, while working with one of the service providers in Ontario, it's taking a little longer. And the reason is not because of the infrastructure that people were no longer meeting face to face and they are on Zoom and with Skype. It's not because of that. It is because of people were not sure of the future of their businesses and all of that. But as now people are realizing a lot of things, so things are getting smoother. But one thing is no longer the time is a constraint. And a longer time is no longer there because people now understand how the flow of information within the organization will go virtually. The important thing is your ability to appear on Zoom. Because I have a very bad experience. One of my clients, I was talking to, and we submitted the client to an employer. An employer gave me a feedback, and it was very disturbing to me when he mentioned that he was hiring a middle management, marketing and advertising professional, and he mentioned that while on the Zoom, he was shocked by looking at the background of the home. I said, "What happened?" He said, "Oh my God, it was completely like a war was going on in the house and everything." And that reflects the quality of the individual, how professional the person is, how organized the person is. If I'm writing in my resume, I'm very organized and detail oriented, and you come to my house and when everything is on the bed, everything is hanging on the chair and everything, and then you are showing it to the world. So you can imagine, so you have to be careful how you're using Zoom.
Yeah.
It's not only that that we should look good in terms of our face, where we are sitting, the surrounding. Either you can have a virtual background, that's one thing, fine, you can choose that. Or if it's not, then at least sit behind a wall, where a plain wall. Sometimes people don't realize kind of a books in the bookshelf or the posters on the wall or the paintings on the, which is, it could be a possibility that it may offend your interviewer. So do not give them a chance to judge you. However, you should not be judged based on that, but it's people are people. You really cannot challenge. So the biasness can come if you're giving them an opportunity to judge you based on your surroundings. So if you are sitting in front of a plain wall or in front of a curtains or something where people will not be able to judge you, I think that is very careful and important from the Zoom point of view.
Yeah. And, it's something I definitely try to be cautious of as I'm recording and because I do a lot of these, I do a lot of Zoom calls, I do a lot of video calls. And I know for the majority of applications that are out there, so things like Zoom, like Teams, you have the ability and the functionality to change your background. So that's great. Right. But I know there's other tools where you cannot, right? I was on a call even this just past weekend. I think it was Yardstream or something, or StreamYard or something. I think that's what it was called. And it didn't give me the ability to change my background. So I know for me personally, I just bought a little pop-up 5x7, just black background, just nice, clean, simple.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it costs, I don't know, just a few dollars, but I can be on a call. I can feel comfortable that I'm not going to be judged because my background is a disaster, right?
You're right.
But yeah, no, it's one of those things I would have never thought about in terms of how you're presenting. I know we were talking about, presenting on video and how you should look. And of course, I think if you're going to be doing interviews, for sure, if you're clean shaven, then be clean shaven. If you have a beard, which is, I think it's the new thing now, right? With COVID, yes, people are growing out their beards and everything.
That's true.
Just make sure your beard is kept, right? Like make sure it's clean. It's, if it's scraggly and it looks like, you haven't showered or, cleaned up your beard in months, then, it's going to reflect and it's not going to be a reflection on you as a person, but, there are things that happen in terms of people's biases. And if that's not how you would show up in person, don't show up like that in video, right?
I agree. 100% agree with you.
Yeah. So no, great points. So I know we were just before the call, we were talking about what's different in today's labor market. So I'd love to hear your perspective on what do you feel is really different, given where we are today. I'm not going to say post-pandemic. We're still in the midst of this pandemic, but what is different about today's labor market?
John, John, I'm going to take you a little, say, 10 years before the pandemic, where companies had a different philosophy. Their main focus was to retain employees, and high turnover means that the company's policies are not fine and good. They were giving examples of Japanese art of management where people spend their entire life. But things started changing, and today that it's a rapidly changing business world where everything is undergoing through a massive transformation. Modern technology has eliminated the geographical distances between the consumers and the enterprises. In fact, they are more closer than ever considered. So this is one of the basic things that we have to keep in mind. It is a massive change and rapidly change. And because of that, it affects the labor market. The trends affecting the labor market, number one is globalization, technology, outsourcing, demographic structures, and now the pandemic, COVID-19. If you see all of those trends, they are interrelated to each other, and COVID is the answer of those. When I say globalization, because of the technology, we were all connected globally. There are so many apps, you don't have to pay for that, and you're connected globally. Outsourcing, companies started outsourcing 3-4 years ago. You might have heard about some banks and some big organizations outsourcing their work to different other countries in Asia and other places. And demographic structure is one of the things where more and more countries are facing the challenges of older workers, because those workers are now, especially in Japan, because of the life expectancy has been increased, and a lot of liabilities for the companies and the countries. So this is also another trend it's affecting on the businesses. And COVID-19 is the answer of all of that. So it definitely affected the business world. Now, because of this change, more and more companies are realizing that their survival is only possible if their overheads and expenses are lean, minimum. And in order to do that, many companies who never even thought of it to work virtually realize that we can operate virtually and we can reduce a big chunk of our operational cost. So this is one of the things that companies are now experiencing virtually, and their results are the same as it before. So why not let continue to have this practice, or at least it is not 100%, a big portion of the people should be away from operations so that they can have, number one, the space, which they pay a very high amount of money, especially for the service sector. Yes, manufacturing is different because of their equipment and machines, but for service sector, and you know that in Canada, we are almost 60 to 70% are service-oriented businesses. So we need places like offices and all of that. So companies are realizing that if we can save some money on that, we can be more functional and also profitable in terms of that, and we can survive. Another trend, if you have noticed, that people are now doing online shopping and they're very comfortable and quite happy, instead of, well, parking their car and then going away and then shop around and spending their hours and hours. They have a liberty and access to the internet, and they're doing online shopping. And because of that, a lot of retailers will no longer be in the business, because those brands will be taken over by warehouses. Amazon is doing a great job in terms of that. Alibaba and so they would be used. You must expect some more are coming in near future, realizing the fact that it is not a great idea to spend fortune in terms of their outlets in the city, and in paying a high amount of money in the malls, rather have a warehouse and promote the business online.
Yeah. No, for sure. So there's definitely a shift. And I know this shift has been slowly happening over the last 20 years, right?
Exactly.
Moving from a bricks and mortar to a online presence only. And I think COVID, if anything, emphasized, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So what does that mean? So for people who are, so somebody's thinking, is there going to be any jobs for me to do, right? Like, what am I going to do if everything's moving online? Or how do I get a job in the future? Muzaffar, tell me, you got this crystal ball, you're kind of seeing things happen.
Right.
What do I do? What do I need to do to stay relevant in today's market?
When I talk to my client, I always emphasize the fact of continuous learning. Always emphasize to my client. And as I just earlier mentioned, that in this rapidly changing business world, to stand still is to left behind. If you are not updating yourself with the technology and with the challenges of the labor market, you left behind. And this is what it is happening now. So companies who used to spend 5 to 10% of their payroll towards their employees' professional development are no longer willing to pay that or to spend that money towards that, because it is one of the overheads. And they expect, because people are available, there is a huge supply of professionals who have technology and they are up to date. So why employer would not hire those professionals, and why they spend 10% or 15% of their from their profits? So because of that availability of the resources and professionals, companies are hiring and bringing in those people. So for the message for people is to believe in continuous improvement and self-development. You don't need to go back to school for that. There are tons of free websites where you can have all the information, EDX or Coursera, and many other websites. You can have a professional magazines. You can go on YouTube and you can learn a lot of different things, but keep adding value to yourself. If you are a multitasker, you could be one of the people who require to run the core business of the company. So you should have a multiple different skills. Not necessarily that I should know about computer troubleshooting and configuration and many other aspects of computer if I am only in information technology. No, even I'm in finance and accounts or in administration or in customer service. If I have these skills, I am more desirable or more useful employee of the organization, and they would like to keep me and they would like to continue to use my services until I am useful.
Yeah, so, no, absolutely. Sorry, go ahead.
So my message to everyone is get ready and try to be on top of your skills. It is not important that if people have excuse, I went to university in 1990 and 1980. No, fine. Or I finished my studies 2 years ago. It does not mean anything. What does it mean? What you're going to offer to employer? I may have a lot of credentials or a lot of degrees and certificates and diplomas and everything. does the employer need that? If not, they are not going to pay me a penny.
No,
So,
absolutely.
so we need to customize our skills towards what employers is looking for, what employer can use it in their operation. Only then we are somebody who can be useful for employer.
Yeah, no, great point. And I think especially today, you've got to be very, your skills need to be cross-functional between different roles and different things that you do, right?
Yes,
And
you're
if
right.
and you and I, we know each other through Toastmasters, which is one of the platforms where you can continue to grow, right? It's a place for you to
Exactly.
grow as a communicator, as a leader, helps you with your organization skills. And I see it, right? So other Toastmasters that are doing incredibly well, it's because of, having that continuous improvement, that platform where you can continue to grow. So yeah, no, great point. And I love it. I did want to ask one more question before we start to wrap up. How important is social media to the job search today?
Good question, John. And I think this is now the backbone of the job search, social
Mm,
media. As I earlier mentioned, not more than 20% jobs are advertised. 80% or more jobs are they never advertised. And how you can approach them is definitely through networking and through different other means. And social media is one of the best tool for your networking and to connect it with people and getting different information. So using social media every day or spend some time on it for your job search is very productive from
mm,
your job search point of view. And also very important one thing, John, I would like to add that um, a lot of people when they lose a job they're very shy to share this information with their friends and families and the social in their circle, and they never want to share it. However, I as a professional I emphasize the fact that we should let everybody know. Even your barber should know that you are unemployed, because you never know that barber can connect you to a potential employer, or your doctor should know that you are also unemployed. Your neighbors should know that you are unemployed. So why not your family and friends?
yeah.
Because more people know about it, you never know who could be your networking connection between the employer and you, and that person can hook you up to the potential employer. So
Mm,
social media, yes, it is the backbone, and more easily used and more frequently used, very productively, and very specifically towards your job search. And LinkedIn is one of the best tool, I would say that, to know more professionals in your field, get connected, keep getting their suggestions and advices. But one thing on social media, that as soon as you connect with somebody, never ask them to please help me find a job.
good point.
Because that is something that that person will never respond to you. And actually so it is just like on the street when you are going through, you just say, excuse me, can you help me finding employment? And then that person will look at you and will run away like, "Whoa, what's wrong?"
Yeah.
So there are some ethics and some values on social media also. A lot of time when people look at my title, I don't even know, and they're just saying that I'm so and so, can you help me find employment? And I said, wow. uh,
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a great point, and so yeah, no, definitely there's some ethics, and I think even how you mentioned, and I like that you said, and I think there's a stigma around losing your job, right? And
right, right,
people might think that I lost my job because I'm not good anymore, or I don't really have value anymore. But I think it's a moment to, a couple of different things to pivot, maybe look at, what you've been doing and maybe it's time to change and do something else. But if you really loved what you were doing, take
right,
that and say, you know what, I'm here to offer value to organizations. Yes, the organization needed to downsize and restructure. So I think you need to stay in a positive mindset as you go out there and you tell people, hey, you know what, my company downsized, I'm no longer with them. So I'm looking for a new opportunity. And that's it,
right.
right?
That's it.
So
Yeah.
So, and if you do that, and if you've built enough rapport and enough trust with everybody around you, people will start searching for you. And it's amazing, and you're the first person to mention that if you have lost your job, or you're in the process of looking for work, let people know. And then by letting people know, things start to show up for you. So great point. So
Thank you.
Yeah, great point. I love that. It's a different and a unique perspective. And it's the first time out of all the guests that I've spoken to, you're the first one to mention it. So good stuff. Just as we wrap up, if people wanted to get a hold of you, Muzaffar, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Best way, as I just mentioned, LinkedIn is the best source. I am on LinkedIn. It's MH Matloob, and then you can always find me there. One thing that before I wrap up, John, I like to mention something I was reading somewhere. There are 3 different sectors who are booming now after COVID, and they are growing. And number 1 is life sciences. Anything in life sciences, if you are planning to change a career, or if you are thinking of switching your career or something like that, or going back to school, life sciences. Second thing is information and communication technology. A lot of scope for that, and it's a global requirement. It's not only in Canada, but it's growing rapidly, and there's a huge demand for that. Because the world is depending on this. And the third one is advanced manufacturing. So these are the 3 sectors which are growing, and people can find better employment in those 3 sectors. And if they are already ready, or they can add some value to their credentials and everything, so they can consider these 3 sectors.
All right. No, good point. And I love that. I didn't realize that those were the 3 big areas. I know with COVID, there's been a growth. There's been growth in several different areas. I know there's been shrinkage in other areas, but there's definitely been growth in some other areas. So it's great. So life sciences, information and communication technology, and advanced manufacturing. So that's awesome. Thank you. Well, Muzaffar, thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your insight. I don't know about the listeners, but I've got like 3 pages of notes already. So I know they're going to take away several notes as well. And just, your insights and your experience is really going to help them succeed as they go through their job search to really stand out and be different, and to stand up above the crowd. So thank you again for being on the podcast.
Thank you very much, John, for having me here. And it's always a pleasure talking to you and sharing views and everything. And in our next meeting, I would be definitely happy to see you again. It's been a long time to talk to you. And then, so yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, I know. I'm definitely looking forward to our next encounter as well. It'll probably be at a Toastmaster meeting or something. But
right.
As soon as the borders, or as soon as things start to open up, we'll have to get together for something for sure.
By all means, definitely. All right. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening in to this episode of the Canadian Job Search Podcast. Wishing you all a great one. Talk to you all soon. Take care.